Hi and good evening, everyone. I'm going to wait till 5 past just to give a chance for a few stragglers to join in, and then we'll start the video. Tom, if you would like to put your camera on and smile for everyone, just to say that you're here, and Tom is happy to answer questions at the end. So hopefully the video will prompt a few. And yeah, if you put them in the chat, which I think is at the bottom of your screen, just type them in, and we'll field them all at the end, rather than having mute and unmute and background noise, if that's okay, please. So we look forward to questions, and we have Brian O'Riordan as well, who's the Lely Centre manager, to field any questions that might come his way as well. So yeah, we look forward to starting in a minute.
Yeah, also don't forget the raise your hand function there if you don't want to type the question, if you just want to ask it at any stage. We'd like this to be as interactive for everybody as possible. I know Tom's a great story here, he'd love to share it, so we look forward to your questions.
You've got a customized image in your background of your own farm. We'll be seeing a bit more of that in a while. It's a nice view.
It's the calmest I ever saw, Tom. You're on mute, Tom.
You're on mute. Keep it that way.
No. No. Talk at some point.
We have to stay like this now for a while.
I say we could start it now, Eddie. I'd say we can kick it off.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, officially welcome to our virtual farm tour. And without further ado, I will start the video.
My name is Brian O'Riordan, General Manager of Lely Centre Mitchelstown. Welcome to our virtual open day here on the farm of Tom and Mairead O'Neill in picturesque Ballybunion here in North Kerry. Today we'll find out how Tom and Mairead manage 140 cows and 2 Lely A5 astronauts and the unique challenges they face farming here on the edge of Ireland, so close to the Atlantic Ocean.
So Tom, do you want to give me a bit of a background as to how you started dairy farming, how long you've been in this part of the world?
I'm originally from Waterford. My father came from here and he went to Waterford and started dairy farming in Waterford, and I came back here in 1997. I started here. There were sucklers here when I came here, and I started dairying in 1997, and I have developed up to about 130 cows now at this stage, and last year I decided it was time to move on and get into something new, and I went for Lely robots to basically move with the future and move ahead in my farm.
How did you find the transition from conventional milking to automatic milking?
The challenge, I suppose, is the first thing I'll start with, in that the startup day is a very difficult day for any farmer looking at his cows and trying to force them into something that they don't want to go into. And I suppose that's the same for a milking parlour or otherwise, but in the robot, it was absolutely amazing within a few days the way the cows were lining up to go into it. Now, we did have a few older cows that were a bit standoffish, with ideas in their heads and still looking up at the milking parlour with notions of going up to it. But it's amazing how over time everything just wears away and all their ideas go, and they love this and they love the system. And when you talk about challenges, the next challenge that's in it is facing into the grazing system and to get the grazing operating properly can be difficult, and it's like starting all over again with training cows into doing something that they haven't done before, and training them to have their own mind on the whole thing. And then there's also the training of the man himself, because he also has to realise that it's a completely different system and that you must let the cows do their own thing.
And how have you found the technical side? So you've got a lot more technology associated with the automatic system than you would have done with conventional. Have you found it difficult to adapt to touch screens and computers rather than manual labour?
Well, thanks be to God, the touchscreen has been no issue to me. Again, being used to the iPhone, which I've had for 10 years or more, and I find that the whole system, the actual information on the system will train you if nothing else does, because you will be so interested in the information that's there. That is the real backbone of the robot system, is this information factor that you have, and how it really changes your whole perception of your herd. It's not just issue the highest yielder anymore, it's issue the highest solids. What way you have so much information on her. The cow is also in a different sphere, in that the cow is much more, I've found anyway, that my cows are much more placid and much more interested in having a chat, for want of a better way of putting it. That the cow, you can stand beside the cow and put your arm around the cow and talk to her, because she doesn't see you as a herdsman anymore and a threat, and that makes a big difference as well.
And do you feel long term it will have it's an unfair question as you are only so new in, but do you feel herd health will improve in the long run because of
I think absolutely. You can pick up on mastitis before it ever happens through conductivity and through cell count. That's available on every milking, and the cow that's milking 3 times a day, you have 3 views on her 3 times to see if there's something happening. So it definitely has a massive impact there. It's way better than any farmer could ever be at observing the cow, in that it will point out that a cow has a health issue, and you walk out into the yard and you find the cow and you look at the cow and you say, would I have seen that if she was in the milking parlour? Would I have actually noticed that she's a little bit off? But this will have flagged it from her milk temperature and from maybe a conductivity rise, which is fantastic, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the system.
We're in one of the most beautiful parts of the country, and we have the sea behind us and we're right on the cliffs. Does that present any challenges to your grazing platform?
The scenery is absolutely beautiful, and there is a price for it, and the price is a problem with exposure, which is a salt issue more than anything else, and the salt can create massive grazing issues. One of them would be where it just wipes out the grass, and the other one is where it makes the grass quite distasteful.
Because you have a very interesting system. It's an A, B, C, and your C is very flexible. So can you explain a bit about why you decided to go down?
Yes, well, I need an awful lot of flexibility here due to the variation in the amount of grass. My grass can change from one day to the next. I can have a 25-day rotation today, back to 0 over 24 hours with a storm. And when you have that situation, you need absolute flexibility. And I'm actually amazed this year how it actually worked. Because we got a storm, one particular storm in August. The second storm did quite a bit of damage. And I just upped the silage and upped the number of hours the cows were inside. And I had no hit whatsoever on milk or solids, in that the system just kept working perfectly. And I find that's what I've been trying to create with years, is a system where I can nullify the salt issue.
So for the majority of the time so far this year, you've had grazing for 16 hours and you've been buffer feeding for 8 hours.
Yes.
In the shed, and the cows have the option of 3 different two different options of grass or silage across the 24-hour period.
I was amazed when I changed actually over to when grazing conditions got difficult and after the storm in August. I was absolutely amazed when I went to 50-50 indoors and outdoors, how the cows attuned to that so well. I couldn't believe how that worked. I thought it was going to be a problem, but I knew that I couldn't have too much travelling because conditions were so bad and grass was so scarce. And I thought when I put them in for 50% of the time that I would have problems with milkings, and it's up the milkings went. I couldn't believe it. And the cows come out, they stay outside for 10 to 12 hours, some of them might stay 14, but they're back in and they milk straight away when they go in. They milk again 6 hours later and they milk before they come out, which I think is absolutely amazing, you know. I think some of that is coming from the cows themselves, that the cows have got more attuned to what's going on. That in the early stages the cows weren't tuned into what was going on, whereas now even the oldest cow in the place is going into the robot 3 to 4 times, like, you know, and that just shows me that it's just an adjustment of man and cow, and it takes time. And after 6 months at it, I can see that the light is at the end of the tunnel and we're there, you know, and that's how I feel about it, like that we've got there at this stage.
We're here in the shed. What infrastructure changes did you have to make to facilitate an automatic milking system?
I probably did a little bit more than I would have had to do. In reality, it just needed a space. I needed to create a space around the robots so as the cows could move freely around the robot, and that they would have plenty of room to come back into the shed from that. Now, I finished up extending the shed and putting in a calf house with it, which it's probably part of the system, in that I've got my calf house behind the robots, which works out very convenient to me. But in the real story, there is very little, only just a roof over the system and the tank around it that would have been necessary to do.
And how many cubicles do you have to the right-hand side of us?
To the right-hand side, I have 116 cubicles altogether. That's this house, and there's another house just up further. But in between them is where the old milking parlour was, and there's 50 cubicles going in there as soon as that's gone out. That'll be gone by the end of the year. So there's another, there'll be 165 cubicles in there by the end of this year.
As part of the design here, Tom has done a really nice treatment area for any cows that he would have an issue with. So this can be used for drying off cows, it can be used to possibly AI cows if you have a sick cow in the system. So what we have here is we have a Lely treatment box. So if a cow walks in, there's just a simple gate here at the back. You keep the cow inside with that. You've got, if you want to tie up a leg for hoof trimming, you pull this down, you tie your leg up to this. This is for lifting legs. And a really nice feature here for drying off cows, Tom has a little pit here with a grid for safety. And you can give treatments here if you want a teat seal or you want to use a tube or whatever, you can do it with the pit here. So a lovely treatment area to go with his 2 Lely astronauts.
So you don't have a strictly spring calving. Could you talk me through sort of what your calving pattern is?
No, I would have been calving a few cows in the autumn with a few years, and I am changing over completely to an all-year-round calving system, as I consider I want to spread the work. I also think that an all-year-round calving system suits robots, and I think if you're in the system, you should utilise everything that works for it. And I think that system will eliminate this crazy spring thing that has been going on all my life. And if nothing, I want to try some other way, and so far so good.
And as far as expansion goes, you mentioned you're putting in more cubicles that would give you scope to milk more cows. Will you expand? You have a son, so you have who has an interest.
I will expand, yeah. It is, the help is coming on, I hope. He'll stay with me. I aim to maybe, well, to pass up 200 anyway, and maybe go to 250. I initially thought that a robot would only milk 60 to 65 cows, but I have discovered that on an all-year-round calving system, you can get up to 80 cows without a problem on a robot. So I have positioned for a third robot. So if I put in 3, I should be able to, well, I have plenty of scope to go to 240, 250 in the future. And like, I would have always been a person that considered that what you do, you're doing yourself, and like that you can't be waiting for your son to come along. But at the same time, it is a big plus to have him showing interest. And the robots seem to have nurtured his interests.
Do you find that your family life work balance has improved with the introduction of the robot? Because you don't just have one son, you have more children than that.
It has been remarked by quite a few people. I've been seen at every match this year. I used to miss most of them up until this year, whereas now it doesn't matter what time a match is on. I can go to a match any time in the 24 hours. And the same as the cow can go in there any time in the 24 hours, I have the same freedom. And I think it has created freedom for both me and the cow.
And what would you say to someone thinking about going down this route?
One of the common questions I've got from onlookers, I might call them, is to know how many cows did I have to dry because of starting with robots. I have yet to find a cow that the robot won't milk and that the robot won't adhere to, or that doesn't cop on within a week as to how all this works and does her thing. And what would I say to somebody that's showing an interest in it? I would say, go on, give it a go, and don't be talking about it until you have given it a go. And you also have to be careful of doing too much looking, in that you will create an indecision within your own head, and you will create, that there are times when you bite the bullet and give it a go and see what happens. And I know this is a big undertaking and it's a big jump for anyone, but I'm very happy with it, and I am absolutely delighted that I made the move.
Well, hello, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully we have some questions coming in that Tom can field. So Tom, do you want to give a very brief introduction of yourself again? Just say hi, and I don't know, what did you think of that? Are you pleased with it?
It's my first time seeing it, actually.
Not.
I still don't like the sound of my own voice. I never did. But it turned out a bit better than I thought it was. So I suppose, it's sure, you all know who I am anyway from what was said on that. I'm originally from Waterford, and I'm here in Kerry with 25 years now. Nearly a Kerry man at this stage. I don't think they've accepted me yet, really. But, I'm very happy with my robots, and I'm very happy with the system so far. And I'll answer any question that anyone wants to ask me.
Ideal. So the first question we have in is, do you find the information easy to access? I'm sorry, I probably should just explain. We have Andrew Helen joining us as well, who is our service manager. So he is here to help field some questions too. So yeah, sorry, Tom. The first question is, do you find the information easy to access?
Yes, it's all there in front of you. You just walk into the little office we have and log on to the computer, and you straight away, you have cows that have issues are flagged, cows that are bulling are flagged. Everything is there, and you can go into the whole herd and check out any cow you want at any time. And I found that unique, in that when it came to AI, you could follow the cow and you can follow her bulling and see exactly, you've got these graphs on it as well that really show you every time she's bulling and everything she does in the day, which I found was exceptional.
So that leads nicely into the second question, which is, how do you find working with heat detection?
Well, what I found about heat detection was I had a submission rate from AI of around 60% at best. And because I was relying on that, I actually had too many cows calved this year in February and March, because I had nearly 90% submission to AI last year. And that's how much it improved my AI. You know, I mean, I'm not into compact calving or anything like that, but that's how much it improved my scenario from tail painting and from what I was doing. And it took the work out of it as well, you know, and that it was just watch the computer and it told me exactly when to AI the cow. And I found that was an exceptional system.
And what would have been your submission rates before?
They would have been less than 60% on AI. From, we'd say from cows AI, 10 cows AI, you were lucky to get 6 in calf the following spring.
And obviously you didn't have that immediate fertility in your cow, so it was just absolutely the observation.
It was the observation, yeah. Obviously, my observation. Well, they didn't give me glasses for nothing.
No, I wasn't insinuating that, Tom. Yeah.
Okay, next one. Did you get a milk increase since you started?
Well, a milk increase is not exactly what I was looking for. There would be a slight increase, but that's not, I don't think that that's a big part of it. The information and all that will lead to a very good milk increase in time and a lot of other improvements. I mean, I wasn't expecting a milk increase, especially in the first year when you have so much training to do and so many other issues and so many different things. And, you know, the actual milk increase is something that I would expect will come in time.
Thank you. Okay, next one. What has been your experience in dealing with Lely Centre Mitchelstown from the consultation process, the sale and the startup?
All right, this is the party line.
Not sure about this one now.
No, absolutely excellent. I never called at any time without having somebody here within a very short time and have all problems solved very quickly. And even like, it didn't matter what day of the week or day of the year it was, I always got somebody out. I have a man here very close to me, and he's exceptional in his timing and also exceptional at what he knows about robots. I find him a very good man.
So, okay, thank you. A lot is said by negative outlooks about alarms going off all the time and in the middle of the night. So what is your experience with this? If Tom, do you want to answer half of that, and then Andrew maybe take on the other bit?
All right. My answer would be I just have it on Mariette's phone. I just get an elbow. No, I don't find that a major issue. We actually only connected that up there not too long ago. We'd say about 2 months ago, we actually only got the phone system, and we found initially it wasn't set up right and it was ringing us a bit too much. But since then, it has hardly rang at all. You know, and like, you know, when things are going right, you get no phone calls anyway. But when something is going wrong, you want to know about it. And whenever that is, you're better off to get the phone call anyway. And I don't consider it to be a problem. The only issue, if there is when we had a lot of cows calving and the 4 buckets were full. That was the only annoying phone call, you know, that it would ring you to tell you the 4 buckets were full. And that's, but other than that, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, I suppose even all, in terms of alerts and things, there's a degree of flexibility in which ones can be switched on or switched off. So, you know, different farms may want to be alerted about something that another farm wouldn't be. So typically, you know, we'll start with setting it up in a way that you only get alerted about things that are actually going to cause you a problem. You know, that basically if the robot is not milking, then you get the phone call. But that, yeah, in general, you shouldn't really be getting a significant number of alarms. I think, Tom, as you mentioned, you've not had anything out of the way.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is sort of preventative maintenance and keeping things clean. So making sure the laser isn't blocked, and robot hygiene is so important. So making sure you don't get needless alarms.
I think robots work on the principle of doing a little bit often. And when I say a little bit, like, you know, just wipe that laser, just keep that arm clean, you know, twice a day is plenty, you know, and it just works well if you just give it that little bit of TLC. And if you do that, like, you should always get a night's sleep. You know, it should never ring you at night, or, you know, if you're going away on a journey, just, you know, pop in and make sure that everything's okay before you set off. Make sure your laser is clean, etc. And I think that prevents an awful lot of mishaps.
There's a question coming for me, which is, what do I enjoy most about working with Tom and advising him towards the Lely system, which is a very nice question, so thanks. Tom always has a smile on his face. He'd always cheer you up. He's always got a new story or a different spin to put on what the cows have been up to, and yeah, and the scenery is stunning. So that's always nice. We always like to go for a walk, don't we? And have a look at the grass. But yeah, just I think he's doing something different, and it's nice to be able to help with the challenges that the land and the scenery have presented, and to see the system working so well, and that the flexibility really is what was needed for him, but is working seamlessly. That's probably one of the most satisfying bits, and just watching it progress, and as he gets more confident and the cows get more confident, everyone's happy. Next one, why did you choose Lely? Controversial.
Yes, is that to me?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, right, sorry. Why did I choose Lely? As I said before, Lely was Harp when I spun the coin, and Harp always comes up. No, honestly, one of the big things I really attracted me to Lely was the colour system. That their colours are, they read the colour, and the colour, from looking at other systems, they didn't seem to have the same, shall we say, functionality in the colour, in the reading, and all the information that comes from it. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about the Lely, is to sit in the office and all the stuff that you can see on the cows is absolutely fantastic.
Ideal. Thank you.
I also love the brushes, the brushes, the pre-treatment, and the brushes, the way it massages the cow, and that's another thing that I really liked.
Ideal. Question for Andrew. From a service perspective, what has changed or improved between the new robot and the A4?
Yeah, I suppose there's less parts to change in each service. There's the milk pump has been replaced by a electric pump, so that tends to require less preventive maintenance. You also have the hybrid arm, so they've gone away from completely relying on air to move the arm to being an electric drive. So that certainly seems to have improved the situation.
Thank you. Any secrets to dealing with restless heifers? I suppose this could go to Brian and to Tom. Brian, you're on mute.
I leave the man of the hour. Tom, you go first, please.
Oh, the restless heifers. Well, we are thinking of maybe getting that little device for tightening in the heifer a little bit more. But other than that, that is the one little difficulty, is that the heifer can move a little bit too much in the box. But we have not failed in any heifer, and all our heifers from this year are trained and coming in and happy out now at this stage. You know, but I do think like that to tighten them a little bit in the box would be a help. You know.
Yeah. Just on my own robot at home, I have it's a backing bar on it.
Yes.
It's Lely provided. It's a bar that you can actually
Mhm.
put on and remove in seconds. It's got a little fold down flap, and you put it onto the back of the frame of the robot. It stops the heifer from moving up and down, so it just squeezes it up for the heifer. I actually leave it on for most of the spring. I mean, it's big enough for most of my cows. And actually what happens usually, just I don't tie it on right, it falls off eventually, and I just pick it up and put it away, clean it off, and like the heifers just get used to it. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of a milking system you have, really. Your heifer has to conform to it. Okay. What I find really helpful is feeding the heifer in the robot if you can. If you have an opportunity to feed her in the robot beforehand, is really, really good, that she's just not shocked about it. I just often see that heifers that are reared in a calf feeder, they get it really, really quickly because they're used to going into something and getting a reward. I find them very good. And look, I don't know, it's a PC thing to say, but like when I was in the milking parlour, sometimes we used to raise the cow's leg a small bit, just get a rope and raise it up about an inch off the ground just to control her. And when she's there on 3 legs, she can't move, weave, or do anything. And I do that often. If I have a heifer that's really, really bad, I might just tie up her leg just slightly 2 inches off the ground, as if you're pairing her hoof or something like that. You can use the bar of the robot or anything to wrap a rope around. It's very safe for the cow, for the heifer. It doesn't stress her, and she conducts herself inside it. And if you do that a couple of times, she just learns there's nothing to fear in here, and they conform.
The other thing you could do is get a tire and hang it over the side, which just restricts the amount of movement she can do from side to side. It doesn't squash her and it doesn't hurt her.
Yeah.
It just keeps her that bit more central.
Also, if you've got a smaller type cow, like some cows, they would have Jersey crosses or something like that, we can actually retrofit a Jersey kit to a robot to tighten up the box a bit. So, I mean, there's plenty of options over there. So, out there. So if anybody had any problems or any worries, just give us a shout.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, another question that's come in for me is, what is my role? So I am farm management support advisor for Lely Centre Mitchelstown. So I look after customers from pretty much point of sale to run them through startup, go over grazing, a bit on shed layout, predominantly cow flow, and then post startup. Obviously, I'm involved in the startup itself, and then post startup, it supports feedback, training on T4C and information, tweaks to the system, a lot of just really.
There's a lot of settings you can adapt the robot, and like everybody's circumstances is slightly different, and every farm is slightly different, and every farm has different routines. I mean, I think, for instance, I fitted a foot bath adjacent to my robot, and I wanted to route my cows automatically through it, and I just gave Addie a ring, and I said, Addie, I want to route my cows every second day through this foot bath. And Addie just got on the computer and she showed me how to do it. So now my cows are routed every second day automatically from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock in the day. They're routed one time through the footbath. So, you know, it's for little things like that. You see the value for farm management support. You know, there's things like, you know, heat detection settings on your robot. You know, when to separate out animals for heat and stuff like that. So there's a lot of little way the robot has to be tailored to your system, you know, grazing settings, etc. So that's where Eddie would come in.
And yeah, Brian's right. Every farm is different. So it's got to be, every cow is different. And the beauty of robots.
Just your own experience, Tom, of the FMS support. And I suppose even myself, when I worked for Lely and I got my robot, I was still a bit, you know, the night before startup, you were still thinking, crikey, I hope this is as good as I said it was, you know. And what was the support you found pre and post startup?
Well, you know yourself that the day of startup is a bit of a shock, no matter how prepared you are for it. And like that's where I found Eddie was excellent in that she's very pleasant and no excitement. We were very excited about things, and she was able to calm us down and keep everything running in order. And like we had the scenario where COVID was after being mentioned, and you know, that we also had to think about that along the way at that particular time. And like everything went very smooth, and I would have to say Eddie was a big part of that, you know, in the whole thing. And we'd say before we started up, we were supposed to put the cows through for a couple of days beforehand, but that didn't actually materialize. It never happened. So on the day, it was completely new to us and the cows. And thanks be to God, it worked out excellently. And I found with Eddie afterwards, anything to do with computers or grazeways or otherwise, she knows her stuff, and you can just give her a buzz and she'll sort out your problems.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, my favourite part about the FMS role is just delving into the information and manipulating the system to suit not only the individual cow, but the whole farm, and just making sure everything is a symbiotic relationship.
A question I often get, Tom, in a lot of farmers is there such a thing as too much information, do you think, when it comes to cows, or how do you find it? Is it an information overload, or, you know, how does it change the way you look at your cows or whatever?
Yeah, it's a kind of a sensory overload more than any. I found myself that in the early stages, once everything settled a bit, I found myself spending too long in the office and getting too sucked in by the smallest little issue because I had too much information.
Mm-hmm.
I have since learned, like, that a cow with less than 50% of an issue isn't really one to be running around the place looking for. That, you know, they need to be above that before you'd even think about observing them. You know, and I found that I was giving too much time at one stage, and it was, you know, I kind of found it hard to settle with it. But then I backed off a little bit and realized, like, that, you know, because you'll find that there's an issue on the computer today. It says this cow has this problem. That can be gone tomorrow by her own natural system, you know. And like, if you are to get excited about all the issues that come up in it, you know, it could spin your head. Yeah. And in that context, there is a little bit too much information. But again, it's about getting used to the too much information factor. And once you're used to it and you know how to read it, it's not a problem anymore, you know. And,
you have a uniquely challenging farm, Tom, and I suppose one of the things, there's two things that struck me when I visited your farm. I've been there a few times, but one time is, number one is the exposure and the wind. Like, the wind is a serious thing, and you were saying about the salt and stuff like that. But another thing, I thought, being so close to the sea, that it would be a drier farm. I thought you'd have better drainage and runoff of it, and I was actually surprised to see just quite how heavy and difficult the soils were on the farm. So could you just share with the people that are here, what's the story on the farm today? We're after a couple of dry days now, after a couple of wet weeks. So where are you sitting now? What kind of yields are you doing? What are you feeding your cows, etc. at the moment?
Right, well, I foolishly let the cows out last week. They were out for 3 days. And I put them back in before it rained because they were sinking 8 inches into it. Yeah. And basically, all that did was slightly upset them in the whole system. And they're still on indoor regime. I'm looking at it today. I went back there with a load of slurry. I have a field back at the cliffs at this stage with tracks in it that I'm going to have to reseed or something. That was the only way of disposing of slurry for the last month. And I went back there today, and it's as wet as it was 2 months ago. So I don't think there'll be anything going out this weekend. I don't think, by the forecast, there'll probably be nothing going out till late next week. So we're staying on winter regime, in that we're going to be inside, and it's full time inside. And basically, the average cow is on about 7 kilos, and yields are due to all your own calving and different calving scenarios, and the cows coming close to the end of their lactation. The average is around 21 at the moment.
Okay, but that's something you're looking at and improving with genetics and information.
Oh yeah, and I can see the potential to get to grips with any issues, or it gives me great potential to actually increase those yields and increase everything. Mm-hmm. It showed up cows that I thought weren't up to much, and spotted that they had 9% solids even at their peak, like, you know, and like that was so amazing to me. Like, you know, admittedly, I wasn't doing any milk recording, so I had an even greater revelation with it, like, you know.
So just for people who are not familiar, the information that you get in terms of a cow's output,
Yes.
first you get the yield of the cow in kgs. You also get there's a refractometer in the robot arm, which gives you a protein. It gives you a protein reading and it gives you a butterfat reading.
Yes.
And so, like, when you click on to see the cow's performance, you get their yield in kgs, you get their percentage protein, the percentage butterfat, but it also works out their kgs of milk solids on any day. You also have the lifetime of the cow, so you know you will have her lactation history, her previous histories as she stays on the robot, etc. So you do have you have information from day to day, but you also have that yearly information that you can harvest back through cow families, even if you're milking with the robot long enough.
Once you get into it, the thing I most like about it all is actually the graphs that it has, where you can see where cows would have dropped in milk, and that you can look back across the whole year and follow the graph, and you can see moments when there may have been a drop in yield for whatever reason, and you can take the day of the year and see where the cows were. And you know, you have all that information to look at any time you want to. And you know, when in your own time you can evaluate maybe where you went wrong in grazing or went wrong in whatever, you know, and that information is also there for the cow factor. You know, you can also see the cow that tails off towards the end of the year, or the one that actually stays milking over 20 litres no matter what, even at 350 days, like, which you know, I found a few cows doing that. I was absolutely amazed at, like.
Could you outline to people who, look, if this was a normal open day, questions are probably a bit more forthcoming and stuff, but and you'll be standing alongside the robot, but could you outline to people what health parameters, if you click on the robot in the morning, what health parameters are you looking for? And I suppose there's people out there that think you must go through the list of the whole cows to see is there any cow sick, or how does the information present itself to you, and how long does it take you, like, when you look at the robot, to establish that things are a-okay, or does the cow I need to check out, or whatever? Tom.
Yes, well, once you're out into the year, especially, but even in the spring, the first thing you check is the health factor on the cow. You just click on the herd health, and it will list off the cows in order of their sick. What's the word for it?
Sick chance, I think, is it? It's a percentage. It's a percentage chance.
Percentage sick chance, yeah, and like it goes from 0 to 100, and like you'll have the cow up at the very top of that might be 70%. You know there's something wrong with her, and it gives you all the different issues that she might have. It tells you her milk temperature. It tells you if she has conductivity in a quarter, and it tells you quite a few parameters. You know, if she's inactive, and all the different, or hasn't been in for a long time. It goes through all those parameters and gives you the percentage. And you know, as I said, I worked out that anything below 50, you needn't be getting too excited about.
Yeah.
50 is, and there might only be one cow on that and the average day, and you may have to check her out and see what's going on, and then the next day you may have no cow on that. But it's one of the first things that I would check is that every day. And
just on Tom's point there, my own, just a couple of recent experience of mine a few weeks ago is that I checked it in the morning before I left for work, and there was no cow really on it. There was a few very low down. You wouldn't take any notice. There was 2 or 3 cows. You wouldn't take any notice. But when I got home around 8 o'clock that night, and there was a cow with a 99% chance to 6, and immediately my radar went up, and it gave her a temperature, watery milk, and I saw that she had been into milk at around I think 4 o'clock in the evening, and she had E. coli mastitis, and I actually caught her very quick, and she, albeit she did lose a quarter, but she's back in production now again. She's hale and hearty, like, so it's, you know, it can be that reactive.
Mm-hmm.
A very good management tool.
Yeah, excellent, and like it's something that you can actually rely on as well. In that I watched it all, like, and it only picks cows that have issues. You know, that you don't have to go checking the rest of the herd to know is there anything wrong. If there's a cow up there, that is the only cow that you have to look at that day. Like I'm constantly talking about the fact that once the cow is trained into the robot and everything is right, she just disappears. And you don't see her again unless she has a problem, you know. And I think that's one of the things that I've noted about it. It would have you thinking that your cows have problems all the time, because it's telling you about the one that has the problem every day. And like that's more of the information factor, you know. And like, because you don't actually see the 99 out of 100 cows that are totally healthy in the day. You don't actually tune into those at all.
Yeah, they don't need your help, so it doesn't tell you.
So it doesn't tell you about them at all.
So we've got another couple of questions as well. If a cow's cell count was to double from one milking to the next, can you get the robot to automatically draft her into the holding area based on this?
Can I take that one?
That one?
Or Andrew?
I suppose it sort of ties in with what Tom was saying around the health score. So specifically, you probably wouldn't draft it if it changes, just cell count changes that quickly. It'd be something that would flag, and you would probably draft her from there. There's a number of different parameters that would feed in to that score that would allow you to draft her.
Just that it doesn't draft her automatically. Especially like if her cell count doubled in a day, and I see this there, cows for any number of reasons could get a spike on a given day in cell count. You know, maybe the dog chased her, maybe, you know, cow was jumping or that was in heat, or something coming into heat or something like that. It can go up for no reason, and usually if it doubles in a day, it could go double back down the next day. But what it does, it can show you like her conductivity, which is salt content in the milk. It can show you the color of the milk. So has it got blood in it? Is it gone blue, which is another type of mastitis, or is it watery in terms of E. coli mastitis? So then you'd use, it'll give you those parameters. It will give you a chance that she's sick. Maybe she has a temperature. It will alert you of the temperature, and it will tell you it's got a chance of being sick. It doesn't replace husbandry. You still have to go and look at the cow, right? So what the robot actually says, if you think about it, it says, okay, from what I can see, the cow has conductivity on the left rear. It's got a raised cell count, okay, and it's got a temperature. And what it says is, I believe there's an 80% chance it's sick. And what it's actually telling you is, but what would I know? I'm only a robot. You know, so the farmer has to go then and check the cow. And usually, like what I usually do, or Tom would probably do, is at that point you draft the cow. And when she comes in the next time, she would be drafted into the waiting area. If it's something like my cow with the E. coli mastitis and she's 99% sick, well, then you go and you look for the cow, you know, and make sure you find it. So it doesn't replace husbandry. You know, you still have to work with it, but it can tell you very, very quickly if there is a problem.
Yeah, and I suppose there's only to keep in mind, if you're milking that cow in a conventional parlour, you know, you wouldn't know the cell count had changed from one milking to the next. So your time frames are still going to be similar in terms of being, if not shorter, in terms of being able to treat that animal.
Mm-hmm.
We got so we've answered. Tom, you kind of answered the one about alarms because we've had that twice. So how many years do robots last before they need replacing?
So the present chat in like we've just after coming up with the A5, I think it's out since 2018, 2018 it was launched. And I mean, it is state-of-the-art milking equipment. I would say like the A4 was a fantastic robot and still is a fantastic robot. I milk myself an A4. The A5 is a subtle change better in a better direction again. The current talk in Lely is more about upgrading rather than trading out with complete new robots and stuff like that. I mean, we've got new software coming this year, so it's a whole new upgrade of our software package that's going to be rolled out, not to just new customers, but to all our existing customers as well. So like the robots you see in farms today, I would be very, very confident that Tom's robot there is going to be milking on some farm in 20 years' time. It mightn't necessarily be on Tom's farm. He might trade it in and buy a new one after a few years of making good money and he has a tax problem or something like that. He might decide as if you're upgrading your tractor or something like that. But there's a good second-hand market for robots. We've had a few A4s been traded in for A5s and stuff like that. So I would anticipate that robot will be on some farm in 20 years' time, and even more. We've robots that are, the A2 robot is out, I think, would last 25, 26 years, and they're still in the marketplace, obviously in a smaller number, but like the A5 that's there is an infinitely better robot than them, and they've withstood 25 years of punishment underneath a cow. So, I'd be very optimistic of the lifetime of them.
I do. Thanks. Is there a problem with teat placement by having close back quarters? I can take this one if you like.
Mm-hmm.
There can be, as in it can see it as one. So there are a few different ways of getting around that. So you tend to extend her out so that her udder is slightly fuller, so that the teats will come apart a bit. And the second question is, do udders need to be clipped? And yes, they do, because that will also help with attachment, because the laser needs to be able to see the teats as distinct beings. It's a linear line, so it'll pick it up. So if you've got hair or dung in the way, it will interfere with the laser and it won't be able to connect properly. But obviously udder hygiene is critical. Udders should be kept clean and tidy, regardless of what milking system you're in.
Yeah, if I could just come in on that, Eddie, and I don't know if Tom, maybe you want to say something. Like, we normally singe our udders, which is just a light flame underneath the cow, moved quickly. Just it's painless for the cow, and it gets rid of it very fast. It's a lot faster than clipping. I think, having milked with the robot for a few years, you learn that every time you isolate the cow, you just trim her tail and you singe her. For instance, when she calves down, you trim her tail. You have her isolated, she's there, you trim her tail, you singe her. Last week, I did my cows for lepto and BVD. So I had somebody with me, so I was doing the vaccinating and they were doing the tails and the singeing. So every time you isolate a cow, just have a look. Does she need a singe? Does she need, if you're giving her an AI, she's there, she's isolated, whatever. So next to my crusher, next to Tom's treatment area, I would keep a singer and a clipper. And, it's not really a big issue. Just on the back teats then, I remember before I started my robot, I was looking at my cows and thinking, crikey, they all have very close back teats. Sometimes in a milking parlour, I had a 2'2" parlour or 2'6" parlour, for instance. And depending on the way your rump rail is, they might actually look closer than they actually are. If you want to have a good look at your cow, just stand her inside the crush and look behind her, and you might have a different perspective on her udder. But usually, unless they're right touching, it's not a problem. Tom, have you any?
Yeah, I haven't come across any major problem. Only when cows get very late in lactation, and especially if they pass over the 305 days and they go low in milk, then it can become an issue. But then, like Eddie said, you just push out the milkings, as in, you don't milk her as often, and leave her have a little bit more milk in her system. And she's coming near drying anyway at that stage, so it's not a problem. I haven't had any problem with any full flow cow having teats too close together. I haven't seen that as a problem. Maybe it might be a problem, but I haven't noticed it in that the cows are milked and it's actually doing the job. So I haven't.
You would notice, because it will alert you for failures, which is an incomplete. Sorry, a failure is an incomplete milking. So it means that for some reason her milking wasn't complete.
Yes.
And it would alert you in that way.
But what I find is that you may have a failed milking, but then when she'll come around again, especially when she's gone low on milk, it doesn't really matter. And she'll come around again, she'll have more milk and she'll milk. You only usually have the failed milking once, and then the next time she's actually milked.
Ideal. Can the astronaut tell if a cow is in calf? No, it can't. It is a milking machine. So it's good, but it's just not that good. You still need, look, you could take a milk sample from the astronaut and get it tested for milk pregnancy. You could use the astronaut to draft your cow into a separation area to be scanned, or pregnancy detected, however you do that. But no, the astronaut itself cannot tell if a cow is in calf.
we do have a reproduction module on the robot as well, which if you record a heat as an insemination, it will expect another heat in 21 days. If that 21 days, if that heat doesn't come, you know, you can make a guess to say the cow is pregnant. But again, it's you know, most people still scan their herds, etc. For it.
If you keep your information up to date, so you record your heat and then you record your insemination, she'll be auto pregnanted, and then you can confirm it, and it'll give you expected dry off, predicted calving, and give you the follow-up information from that. But the physical diagnosis, no.
What's very handy is if you scan at the correct time, and if your scanner is good, and you get an accurate calving date through your AI records and stuff like that, it will, as Eddie said, you will get a predicted calving date, which will ensure that your cow gets her full lactation. I mean, there's nothing more annoying than calving off a cow and looking at her for 3 months, you know, when you could have been milking her on. You know, she can put that milk into the tank for you and be earning for you. So, you know, every cow can get its full lactation. Have you any experiences with that, Tom?
My experience was that I just looked at every cow's graph, every cow's heat detection graph, and I actually made out a list myself on my own copybook, and I found it to be spot on with every calving that has happened since, just in acknowledging when she was last pulling on the system, and it works perfectly for me. I'd be very happy with that. You know, I wouldn't be savvy enough with the computer to actually allow it tell me I'm working it out myself from the graph that you get with each cow. I just go into each cow and check the graph, and I would be happy to do that forever.
Can you set the percentage of sickness as an auto draft? For example, anything over 75 is automatically drafted. Yes, you can. You have to apply an advanced filter and set the parameter to say that if her sick score is a certain level, between a certain level, she will be drafted. But I think hopefully for most of the audience, that's a bit technical. So if the person who asked that question would like to contact me directly, that's fine. I can help you out with that one. So this one, what is the optimum time frame for setting up from scratch with the intention of heading into robotic milking?
Andrew?
Yeah, I suppose it depends on a number of factors. It is a long process. You know, it depends on the amount of building work you have to do. Once you're ready for robots to go in and be fitted, you know, you could be from that point, you could be milking within, you know, 2-3 weeks easily. But I would say you're looking at about 12 months minimum. But things would want to go very well to do within 12 months. You know, actually fitting the robots is actually probably a small part of that process. There's a lot of work goes in beforehand in terms of planning. As I said, building works, getting your sumps in, getting your tank room ready, you know, power and water and so on, you know. So, and you know, that's why we have a dedicated project coordinator who takes over from the point of sale to the point of startup, you know, to liaise with builders, electricians, plumbers, and so on, and you know, to advise on all the aspects of layout and getting everything installed and up and running as efficiently as possible. You know, it's a process we've been doing for years, so you know, there's a lot of experience there to make sure the project is successful.
In terms of timings, then, you know, there's never a good time or a bad time to start a robot, really, except when cows are probably peaking. You would probably just leave them alone while they're reaching their peak. We people start up all year round, but I would suppose, Eddie, May, June would be kind of out for starting robots.
In a spring-based system, yeah, you avoid May right through till the beginning of July, really, because you don't want to disrupt breeding and peak milk. But if you're an all-year-round system, you have more flexibility. And it's farm dependent, farmer dependent, and it's got to be the right time for the system to be ready. There's another question.
Tom, just what time of the year did you set up, Tom? If you don't mind me
We
asking.
started in March, it was towards the end of March last year. I found it absolutely fine. You know, in fact, I would say it's probably a slightly better time because cows just after calving seem to be more manageable, in that, you know, a cow is more docile just after calving or within 2 to 3 weeks of calving, and it probably helped, rather than cows late on in the year when they can be a bit giddy and a bit flighty, you know. And
well, they have a great need to be milked after calving too, and they've got a need for energy that they might get in the feed in the robot as well, which will probably motivate them to get milk.
a bit of hunger.
Can be best sauce, they say, the best sauce.
We've got another, this is quite a general one. So there have been some changes in Lely in Ireland recently, obviously with the introduction of Brian as the new general manager. What are your plans for farmers and business in the area?
Well, look, we're the Mitchelstown area now. We're covering Cork, Kerry, Limerick, Waterford, South Tip, Kilkenny, Carlow, and Wexford. So it's a big area, and we're looking to build on what we have already and to improve where possible the services we're giving to farmers. We're actively recruiting at the moment in more or less all areas. So if anybody there fancies a career in Lely, give us a shout. So from technicians to FMS sales, whatever, we're talking to people, because you know there's a lot of growth, a lot of interest, and you know, in Lely we always try to put the farmer and the cow at the center of what we do. And as a farmer myself, I suppose I realise how heavily we rely on support and good backup. So great plans for the future.
Thank you. Andrew, I think this one might be for you. How does the milk line from the robot to the milk tank get washed?
Yeah, so it's very similar to a conventional milking parlour in that when the robots do a main cleaning, it washes out as far as the end of the milk line at the front of the milk tank. There's a valve there that closes off the milk tank and opens up to the drain. So basically, it flushes the wash water right the way out the milk line. You know, everyone always been using chlorine-free chemicals. It's not a circulating wash, so it flushes right the way through. You're washing up at 80, 90 degrees, so you know, and it'll do that 3 times a day, every 8 hours. So you're always guaranteed, you know, to have the milk time.
Your TBCs, Tom, how are your TBCs and cell counts and stuff like that?
I always average somewhere between 10 and 40, and since the robot went in, I haven't been over 5 in any test at any stage, which is overkill.
That is a bit
I'm looking for ways to
speed it up.
No, I'm absolutely thrilled with that. You know, I'd say I'm going to be getting a reputation at the co-op at this stage.
Good man, she's dead right.
Against the opposite one that I had. No, I find that side of it excellent. There's no problems whatsoever on that side. Not an issue.
We've run out of questions and we've been entertaining you for the last hour. So I just want to say thank you very, very much for everyone joining, and I hope you enjoyed the video. It will be uploaded to our YouTube channel if you want to watch it again. See Tom's smiling face and the beautiful scenery around the farm. So yeah, thank you all very, very much for joining. And we'll hopefully see you again at our next farm tour. So watch this space.